was 10 years old when Indiana Jones had a cultural resurgence in 2008 with the release of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. As an avid lover of Lego, video games, and 80s blockbusters thanks to my parents, it was the perfect storm to whip little me into a frenzy. But this love of the character in the movies was more than just a passing fad for me. Something about this character and the adventures he went on spoke to me in a way that most other movies didn't. It had such a big part in my life that I briefly considered majoring in anthropology in college, in order to be able to explore history like my childhood hero. That was until I figured out that anthropology was mostly about understanding genetics and memorizing extinct species, which caused me to switch to the major that all college students switch to when they don't know what to study, psychology. While all three of the original Indiana Jones movies hold a special place in my heart, if you clicked on this video, you probably guessed that my favorite is the Temple of Doom. Now if you clicked on this video, chances are you probably also like this movie, so I don't have to tell you it's underrated. But the average movie watcher and casual fans of the series consider this to be the worst of the original three. This is fine because personally I love them all, so they're close to each other in terms of my personal ranking. But how low do you think it would rank critically if you had to guess? Something like this? Not quite. I asked my subscribers in a YouTube poll what they thought, and this is what they said. Seems pretty much like what I would expect. Is this what critics think?
Wrong!
Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes both have this film ranked lower than Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny. This is criminal. I mean, I was expecting it to be the lowest of the original three, but the fact that the majority of people would rather watch the Crystal Skull over this movie genuinely baffles me. I don't need to tell you how bad that movie is. Go watch Mr. Plinkett's review of it. I agree with basically every criticism he makes. Aside from the fact that I just really love this movie and wanted to talk about it, this disgusting, frankly slanderous rating of the film is the reason I decided to make this video. I need to spread the gospel to those who are maybe on the fence or just genuinely don't like it. So if you're one of the people who likes this movie and you know someone who doesn't, send them this video so they too can see the light. And while you're still here, grab your fedora, buckle in, and let's talk about my favorite Indiana Jones movie. A huge part of the appeal of the Indiana Jones movies to me has always been the power fantasy of the character, and part of that fantasy is imagining what happens in his life between films. Coming up with fanfiction in my head and even writing short stories or even short films, and I think a lot of the fan base feels the same way. And the reason I bring that up is I like to imagine that if Indiana Jones was a real person, the stuff that happened in Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade would be the things that he talks about when he's invited on the Today Show, or that would be written in the textbooks about him, about how he beat the Nazis to the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant. But the thing I love about the Temple of Doom is it shows us that this guy's life was so crazy that a deal gone wrong in China actually led him on an adventure so crazy it was worthy of a feature-length film. To me, it adds to the legend that is the character of Indiana Jones, and builds the world around him so much more than just seeing his most important moment. It also allows us to see a little bit how he got to be the character that he is in Raiders of the Lost Ark, because this one takes place before that one. I'm going to run through the entire plot of the movie in this video, but I'm not going to do a spoiler warning, even though I guess this kind of counts as one, because anybody over the age of 25 has already seen this movie, and anybody under the age of 25 doesn't have the attention span to sit through an entire movie, so anyway, here we go. Following the aforementioned deal gone wrong, Indy finds himself in an airplane owned by the guy he just narrowly escaped from.
Nice try, Lao Shade!
Now, he finds himself with his sidekick Short Round and a singer by the name of Willie Scott. I'm going to get into these characters more as we go, but for now, that's all you need to know about them. After the party falls asleep because of their harrowing escape, the two pilots jump out of the plane on their boss's orders, forcing Indy and the gang to jump out of the plane with the only thing they have available to them, an inflatable raft. Pretty ridiculous, but I love it. They end up washing ashore in front of this creepy looking guy who takes them back to his village. He lets them know that his people have had their magic stone stolen from them, and all of the village's children were taken as slaves. Indy decides he's going to help these people, but this is where something interesting happens. Because this movie's a prequel, we get a version of Indy that's actually a lot more morally gray. He doesn't just see this as his opportunity to help some starving people, but as his shot at fortune and glory. It's the way he's going to make Indiana Jones a household name, and I love this choice personally. I find it way more interesting than him just wanting to help these people because he's just such a nice guy. It allows him to have a more realistic motivation, but also a chance to grow throughout the movie. So he agrees to help, and they take some elephants and guides to Pankot Palace, the place where the children and stones are supposed to be. But they get some warning signs that something sinister is going on. Arriving at the palace, they're greeted as honored guests, but something still feels off. After the, frankly, incredibly racist dinner scene, We get sort of a quiet moment with Indy and Willie, and this is genuinely one of my favorite points of the movie. They're both aggressively flirting, but both have committed their egos to thinking they're better than each other. And neither of them wants to be the first to be vulnerable. Up until this point, the dynamic between them has been Indy thinking Willie is a stuck-up snob who complains too much, which is definitely true, and Willie thinking Indy is just some low-life slimy creep just out for himself, which is also pretty true. But they just can't deny the attraction. I really love this scene. I honestly think it's one of the best portrayals of flirting I've ever seen in any movie, and this is gonna kind of lead me into a hot take, I guess, but I already said the Temple of Doom's my favorite, so this one's kind of tame compared to that. But I think this is my favorite cast of characters Indy's ever had an adventure with. Like, first of all, this is the only appearance of Short Round in an Indiana Jones movie. And like, who doesn't love Short Round? He's badass, he's hilarious, and Academy Award winner Ke Huy Quan is an absolute king. So I mean, Shorty speaks for himself. But yes, I also like Willie Scott. In fact, I think she just might be my favorite love interest Indy has had. Let me explain. Alright everybody, we got a slight change of plans here. While I was researching for this video, right, I stumbled upon this website where Willie Scott has an article, and it has this like little listicle here of 11 things, and we are going to dissect all of these and point out why these are all lies written by a fraud. So we're just going to do that instead of me sort of just explaining why I like her as a character. We're instead going to shit on whoever wrote this. So here we go. So I'll paraphrase here. Essentially what the author is saying is Willie doesn't contribute to the story enough, which, I mean, on its face just is flat out wrong. I think what they're more trying to say is that the author of this article doesn't find Willie to be as competent as Marion and Elsa Schneider, which obviously that's the point of her character. The whole point of her character is that she's sort of a fish out of water, and that's what makes her interesting. Like, she's not the daughter of a well-known anthropologist, and she's not a literal Nazi spy. People who would have the skills to be good at helping an archaeologist on his adventure. The second reason we have here is that she screams way too often. I'll give you this one if the screaming really gets to you. It doesn't personally get to me. It's kind of like, A, it's like supposed to be funny, but B, it's kind of like cathartic because it's like you're seeing someone who's sort of spoiled and they have to like deal with the real world. So number 3 is that she's incredibly immature. And at this point, I kind of realize this list could be like 2 or 3 things, but they're kind of just saying the same thing over and over again.
2 hours later.
7, she's constantly getting kidnapped. Okay, so this one led me to a realization. You know who else gets kidnapped in Indiana Jones movies? Pretty much literally every single main character in an Indiana Jones movie at some point gets kidnapped. At least in the original trilogy, literally even Indiana Jones himself has been kidnapped. Like, she's not very good with priorities. During the scene where a firefight erupted, she tries to get the diamond, and she complains about getting her nail chipped. Those things are jokes. I don't know how joyless of an individual you have to be taking an Indiana Jones movie this seriously, that when Willie Scott says, "Oh, I chipped a nail from holding the gun," I don't know, you're like seething, sitting in your chair. I would suggest you grow up and maybe go to therapy if you're getting this upset. Number 10, she gets rewarded as being Indy's romantic love interest. Okay, and I think maybe we're onto something here. I'm just realizing this. Maybe we're onto something here. Is the author of this article maybe jealous? I'm not making any accusations here. Indiana Jones is an attractive guy. I get it. Again, go to therapy. And number 11, the last one, Kate Capshaw also did a rather pitiful job portraying the character as well. Wow. Kate Capshaw, she portrayed the character that was written for her to portray. Like, she did exactly what was asked of her. Screaming and cartoonish over-the-top acting. It's Indiana Jones. These are popcorn action movies. They're meant to be like comedies, essentially.
Mr. Archie's a real small guy.
She did exactly what they asked her to do. This article sucks. So, while Indy and Willie are pretending to not be interested in each other, an assassin who's been hiding in Indy's room tries to strangle him. After escaping and killing the assassin, he goes to check Willie's room for intruders and ends up finding a secret passageway to some sort of ritual area where this guy gets sacrificed in a pit of lava. Indy then waits approximately 2 seconds and immediately decides the coast is clear and that he's going to go steal the stones back. But before he can hightail it out of there, he hears the screaming of a child being abused and has a change of heart, hurling a rock at the man whipping the kid and getting himself captured along with Shorty and Willie. And this is where the story kind of gets dark, which is another criticism I often hear of this movie, that it's just like too dark and not as fun as the other ones, and people don't like that about it. This one's definitely up to your taste personally. Like, if you watch this movie and you're fine with everything that I'm complimenting it for, but you just didn't like how dark it was, I can't really change your mind on that, but I'm sort of just trying to explain why I like it, and then maybe at least you could understand why somebody would like it, at least. From this point forward, it's kind of like the main cast got dropped into a scary movie. And as someone who doesn't really like scary movies, this on its own wouldn't be a selling point for me. But it doesn't feel like a scary movie. And the reason for that is, this is gosh darn Indiana mother flippin' Jones. Aside from the fact that this is a prequel, and we know he's going to survive at the end, he's just an unstoppable force. A one-man army. Him having the ability to fight back and be successful doing so takes the fear from the environment and turns it into excitement as he keeps outdoing the bad guys. And thinking about this led me to a comparison that, in retrospect, is incredibly obvious. The Temple of Doom is just Resident Evil 4. Well, to be more accurate, Resident Evil 4 is the Temple of Doom, but you know what I mean. There are so many similarities, but the most important one is that this is an action story set in a horror setting. Both use monsters or evil cultists or scary visuals to scare us, yes, to a certain extent. But more importantly, to show the audience that the main character is one tough SOB. This is absolutely not a coincidence either. I mean, there are way too many things RE4 does that are inspired by the Temple of Doom that it had to have been a huge inspiration for them. Now, what does this comparison have to do with the point of the video? Besides me just finding it interesting, I think it adds sort of an example so that if you've never seen this movie, but if you're subscribed to me, and I'm usually talking about video games, you probably played Resident Evil 4 before because it's like one of the classics. You know that, like, while yes, it has like scary stuff in it that's meant to be sort of horror-like, it's mainly an action game that's meant to make you feel like Leon Kennedy is this really tough, cool guy. And that's how the Temple of Doom makes me feel about Indiana Jones. And like Resident Evil 4, badassery from our hero prevails over evil, and Indy and the gang manage to make their way back to the surface with the stones and having freed the children. It's not over yet though, as Indy is caught in the middle of a bridge with cultists on both sides. With no other solution available to him, he slices the bridge in half.
Prepare to meet Kali in hell.
Sending bodies careening into gator-infested waters below. Hanging on for dear life, Indy and the cult leader Mola Ram tug of war over the bag with the stones inside, leading to Indy activating them, which causes them to burn through the bag, sacrificing them forever, with the last one landing in Mola Ram's hands, making him fall and allowing Indy to be able to escape with the final stone, which he then uses to revitalize the wildlife of the village rather than just keeping it for himself for the fame and glory, showing a change of heart from the beginning of the film. And with that, our movie comes to a close. I love this ending. I love these characters and the journey they go on. Like even Short Round, who throughout the film has been more of a comic relief character, gets these kind of intense moments where he's in a really bleak or scary situation, but he uses Indiana Jones as his role model to give him the confidence to pull through. I also love that at the end we get to see Indy and Willie kiss. And we know where this story goes and that ultimately these people just aren't compatible, but that sometimes it's okay to just have a little fun and enjoy the moment. I love seeing life return to the village and the smiles on everyone's faces. And man, it's just such a good movie. I definitely have problems with this movie. It's not perfect. It's from a different time, and there's definitely way more like iffy, racism-y type stuff to ignore, such as, I have a bunch of examples listed on my phone, but we have the wise old Asian man trope, taking liberties with Indian history, sort of a white savior thing going on, and honestly, worst of all, just painting the British as good guys in like literally any way at all. But as a whole, if you're able to get past that sort of thing, I just think this is a really good movie, one of my favorites of all time. And I certainly think it's at least deserving of the title of third best Indiana Jones movie. Maybe second? No? Okay, at least third. Hello everyone. Before this video ends, you may notice on my head I have a hat with like the little channel logo guy on it, and it also has a bunch of cat hair on it because of them specifically. I'm not trying to push it on you or anything. Hat hair, jump scare. I waited until it got here before I posted this video, just like to make sure that it was a quality that I was happy with. And it's like, it's got one of those like metal clasp buckle, I don't know what you would call it, things. It's not like just like a Velcro one. And if you are interested, great. If not, also great. No worries. There's no obligation. Don't feel obligated to buy this hat. But with that, thank you so much for watching this video on Indiana Jones. And I got more stuff lined up in the future. Thinking about doing, you know, some bigger projects that take me a really long time, and then working on smaller stuff in between. That's what everybody says. It may not happen. That's what I'm trying to do. That's just, you know, me being transparent. I'm trying to tell you what my process is like right now. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I've been recording this for almost 5 minutes now, which is ridiculous. This is supposed to be like a 20-second outro. But thank you so much for watching. See ya.